Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's On the Sofa. We're very pleased to say that we've got Steve Abbley with us tonight, and he will be on shortly with Vic. Just a couple of things. Commiserations to the Under-18s Academy today, on Saturday. They missed out on winning the title, coming second. The game sort of went from one to the other, and they lost it in the final minutes. They had a draw in the final minutes, which meant that Plymouth got the title. So commiserations to them, but we're looking forward to them being in the quarterfinals against Bristol City next week. And I do believe there's still some room on the coach. So if anybody would like to join them and spur them on up at Ashton Gate, please get in touch with SAS Travel. Women again had a goal fest, 8-1 yesterday to Portishead at home at Foundation Park. So well done to them. So let's bring Vic on. Good evening, Vic.
Good evening, Chris. Yeah, more on SAS Travel. Now, they're open at the County Ground tomorrow, of course, pre-match. We got Tranmere at home tomorrow night in their little office behind the town end. As you said, the final few seats for the Under-18s game at Bristol City a week on Thursday are available, plus Mansfield and Walsall away. Now, Walsall's on the 23rd of March, so quite a little way away. That's an 11:30 start from the County Ground. The Bristol City game, the Under-18s, on the 7th of March, a 4:30 away, because, of course, it's a 7 o'clock kickoff at Ashton Gate. Mansfield on the 9th of March, that's a 9:30 away from the County Ground, and it's open for phone bookings on Thursday. But if you want to go along to the County Ground tomorrow night and book your spaces on those buses, then they're open in their office behind the town end.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. So let's bring Steve on. Good evening, Steve.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight, for taking the time.
My pleasure.
I will leave you now to with Vic, but if anybody has got any questions, please leave them in the comments box. Okay, and I'll see you later.
Thanks very much indeed, Chris. Steve, a great pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And I've been looking through your life, and what a fascinating life it is. I mean, you know, the ups and downs of football, but by goodness me, non-league football as well, which is fantastic, the life you've had in that. And you all started in Liverpool in 1967. So are you a little bit pleased about what happened at Wembley yesterday?
Well, I'm an Evertonian, unfortunately.
Oh. No, then. But you must be quite pleased about the points deduction being reduced today.
Oh, I was delighted today. I was in my car on my way home when I heard it on the news. So, yeah, delighted.
You see, I assumed you would be a...
I'm also a season ticket holder at Everton. So, you know, I get up there when I'm not watching Cirencester on a Saturday.
Fair enough. I saw Liverpool and I assumed you were red, but never assume. I think that's the lesson of tonight. That's fair enough, isn't it? So when did you first move down to this part of the world then? Well, I say this part of the world, I'm in Devon, but I mean when the Swindon area.
We moved actually in 1966. I was, I think I was 9 years old, and my dad was a builder, and there was no work in Liverpool in those days. And so my mum's sister lived down this way. And and she said there were, you know, plenty of building going on in Swindon at that time. So my dad was a plasterer, and we moved to Swindon and started a new life here.
And did you know anything about Swindon at all?
Nothing at all.
And how did you find it? Because you're moving from a big city, obviously, Liverpool, down to Swindon, which, you know, has expanded greatly in the last few years, but it certainly hadn't in those days.
Yeah, we were all kids at that time, and we were amazed at the open space. Me and my brothers had never seen a cow before, and then we drove. I think we drove to Liddington because my dad had a job there, and we saw a load of cows in the field. We had to stop and look at these cows because we'd never seen cows in Liverpool before.
Extraordinary. You see, we don't often think that because obviously, you know, if you live in the country or you live in a town like Swindon, that's like second nature, isn't it? But Absolutely. Did you live in a city in Liverpool then? Whereabouts did you live?
Yeah, we lived right in the centre. We lived in Notty Ash. So
right.
We were right in the city centre, you know, a short bus ride from the football grounds.
Yeah, famous place, of course, Notty Ash. Were there many diddy men about, or were they?
No, people often asked me that when we first came to Swindon. So no, unfortunately, we didn't see any.
Oh, well, never mind. So when did football start rearing its ugly head for you then? When did that all kick off?
Oh, almost straight away, really. I was lucky enough to get into the school team at kind of 10 years old at Park North Junior School. And then we joined when I was kind of 11 or 12. I joined Walcott Boys Club. And the great thing about the Boys Club then was that they played every sport. You know, you could play basketball and tennis and football and table tennis. And so that, you know, for somebody like me who loved sport, it was perfect. I was there almost every night.
Sure.
Their teams on a Saturday.
Walcott Boys Club, very famous for producing footballers as well, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and really good teams. And I played at the football boys club from under 13s to under 17s. And then, of course, that was the highest team. And then, I don't know if you remember this, but that boys clubs were kind of disbanded because there weren't any girls clubs and you had to have equal opportunities. So everything became a youth centre rather than a boys or a girls club. And that's how I got to Park.
I was just thinking, actually, the very famous Liverpool singer Frankie Vaughan was very big in the boys' club movement, if I remember rightly.
That's
years
right,
ago.
he was, yeah. They used to hold big jamborees in Liverpool for all the boys' clubs.
Sure. Now, Parks FC, I asked you about that because I was trying to find details of Parks FC, but I kind of wasn't aware exactly where it was, but I'm guessing Park North, Park South, it would be that sort of area, would it?
Yeah, it was based. Yeah, it was Park North. It was based at Park School, and the team we won the what was the Wilts League Division 1 2 or 3 times on the trot actually, and it was while I was there. I was also played for the county and then played for Southwest Counties. And it was at Southwest Counties that I met Frank Burrows because we played down at Portsmouth against the Navy. And I think I scored 1, maybe 2 goals in that game. And Frank came to me after the game and said, "Have you ever thought about being a pro?" And I'd said, "Well, you know, what kid hasn't?" But you know, I thought I think I was 19 then, so I thought it had passed me by.
Yeah, that's quite. I mean, when you look at academies these days, that is quite, dare I say, old, isn't it? 19.
It was, yeah. And he invited me to come and play a few reserve games on a Tuesday night because I was still playing for Park on a Saturday, and it was a big wake-up call for me going and playing against, you know, some pro. My first game was away at Ipswich Town. And at that time, Ipswich was still being managed by Bobby Robson.
Right.
And their first team game was called off. So most of their first team played in the reserves that day. And I thought we did well to only lose 3-0.
Yeah, we're talking about the football combination before we started this. And I think it's one of the great misses of football now because they don't get that gap, do they? They don't get that bridge between what you call youth football and men's football, which to me is a big miss somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed every minute of it and every week, especially because all of the London teams were in the football combination in the south. So all the London teams that we'd go to, we'd play on their first team pitch, and they'd have at least 3 or 4 what we would thought in those days of as stars. I remember going to play against Arsenal at the old Highbury ground, and in their first team, in their reserve team, they had 5 first teamers, including David O'Leary, played in that game. So you know, it was for young lads. It was a big learning experience, but also what a fantastic experience if you're 17 or 18 playing against, you know, first division regulars.
Yeah, and we were saying about crowds that used to get. I mean, I remember going to reserve games when 6,000-7,000 people were there. You know, these are reserve games because you'd see the likes of Pat Jennings, you'd see all these top players playing when they were coming back to full fitness again, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great learning experience, and if they'd been injured or they'd been out of the first team and they needed a run out, they would, you know, they had no hesitation in playing in the football combination. Nowadays, if you were to ask a first team player to play in that, their agent would be on the phone telling you they can't play in those games.
Yeah, sure. I mean, how did you find that step up then from playing for, Parks FC and then playing in the football combination? How difficult was that?
Really tough for two reasons. One was we're playing against much better players, but two, the fitness levels. My fitness level was nowhere near theirs at that time, and the only way I was going to get my fitness level up to theirs was to be full time like they were.
Sure, and that is a big difference, isn't it?
Oh, massive difference, and you don't realize it at the time, but these guys were super fit in those days, and if you couldn't match the fitness, then any ability you had wouldn't come out.
So how long did it take you to get to a level of fitness that you were happy with?
Well, that season came to an end, and you probably remember that Frank Burrows left the town at the end of that season. I think he went to get the Portsmouth job.
Yeah,
it was great for him because he lived in Portsmouth. And Bobby Smith came to the club.
Yes.
And John Trollope had asked me to come out and play a few pre-season games, and Bob Smith again asked me, did I fancy being a pro? And at that time, I'd just been made redundant from my job. So it was perfect timing for me. And I said, yeah, of course I would. But it took me at least 3 months, I think, of training to get up to the fitness levels of everybody else. So that first couple of months there was, I think, the hardest work I've ever done. Came home every night and just went to bed. I was so tired.
Yeah, I don't think anybody realizes just how difficult it is to step up, do they, until you actually experience it?
No. And the training sessions were very intense. So, you really did have to be very fit to keep up with them. And also at that time in the Swindon first team, there were really fit people like Chris Kamara and Roy Carter and Ian Miller, who were at any level would have been the fittest players in the team anyway. So, it was hard work.
You mentioned John Trollope. I mean, my goodness me, if you want somebody who's fit, John Trollope was fit, wasn't he?
Absolutely. John had kind of almost come to the end of his playing days when I was there. And John actually ran the youth setup by the time I became a pro there. So, but Bobby Smith actually brought him back for some games, didn't he, in his first season?
He did, yeah.
And John looked like he'd never been away, didn't he?
Well, he's just incredible. And I always remember him running the Swindon Marathon and thinking, boy, that's not bad, is it? He was pretty good. So that was a time when Bobby Smith had taken over. And actually, it was a pretty good time for Swindon fans, of course, wasn't it? Because you mentioned the players, Roy Carter, Chris Kamara and the like. And, of course, that was a really, really good team, wasn't it?
Oh, very good team. We acquired Alan Mays halfway through the season, and him and Andy Rowland up front were just prolific scorers. We had a couple of good cup runs, and it was very hard to break into that team. Ian Miller was kind of the person I had to try and displace from the team, and he was a really good player. So, you had to wait for him to be injured.
I mean, we're getting into League Cup semi-final territory here, aren't we? This was a really decent side.
Yeah, very good team, but well managed, and as I said, two prolific scorers up front. Brian Williams on one wing and Ian Miller on the other wing, and Jimmy Allen in goal. Jim was a great goalkeeper. So it was a real good side. As I say, hard to break into.
So how did you break in? I mean, you had 5 league appearances, I think, in your first season, but how once you made that breakthrough, how was that?
Oh, fantastic! I loved every minute of it. I only played 5 that year because we played a home game and we won it quite comfortably. But right near the end, I thought I might score a goal. The ball came over the top, and I went into a 50-50 with the goalkeeper, which is always a bad idea. And it's one of those things where you have to experience it to never do it again. I had a bad ankle injury, which kept me out for the rest of that season. And I was really disappointed because I thought I'd done quite well in my first half a dozen games. And I thought at least well enough to play to the end of the season. And I remember we were supposed to play away at Wrexham on the Tuesday. We beat Preston North End on the Saturday 4-1. And then we were due to play Wrexham away, and I got this injury. And I don't think I played in the team again that season.
How frustrating is that then for a footballer? Because we often, we see players play and all that kind of thing, but the injury side of it, you're out of the way, aren't you? You're kind of in the shadows.
Well, you become a non-person because the manager's disgruntled with you because you're not fit. You're disgruntled with yourself because you're not fit. You don't get to take part in all the banter and all that's going on in the dressing rooms because they're out training and you're in the treatment room. And it really is, you do become a bit of an outcast until you're fit again and you can start to join in training with everybody else. It's the worst aspect of being a footballer, the injuries.
How did you deal with it then?
Well, I was still studying at that time because I'd started my accountancy exams and I continued to do that. So in the afternoons after I'd had treatment, I'd go to college. So that kind of took my mind away from it. But Saturdays was always a bit of a desert because you were expected to travel with the team, even though you weren't playing and weren't going to play. It's just a bad time. I think every footballer will tell you the same thing. There's nothing worse than everybody talking about the game and you kind of can't take part.
I mean, we talk about mental health these days, but was there any help? Were you able to talk to anybody? No is the answer, I'm guessing.
No. And it was kind of seen as a sign of weakness if you wanted to talk to somebody. And the other thing that strikes me now, looking back, was nobody gives you any advice. Nobody gives you advice about diet. Nobody gives you advice about how to cope when you are injured and it's going to be maybe 3 months or so. I think that was really lacking in my day. That kind of can't think of the right word for it, but you hear about it in schools now where kids are struggling and they can get some advice and help to let them get back into the mainstream. And there was none of that about when I was playing.
The accountancy thing, then, that was to hold you in very good stead, of course, wasn't it? So when did that first come into your head? Were you always going to do that? I mean, I think the example is that a lot of footballers would probably, I don't know, go down to bookies or whatever, but you were never going to do that. You were studying and for the accountancy. So when did that first come up?
Well, I'd left school at 16 and thinking I just want to get out and earn a living. But then as soon as I got a job, I went to work in the railway, the old BREL. And I joined their accountancy trainee scheme because the first thing you find out when you first go to work is you need some more education. Mm-hmm. So I was very lucky because they gave me day release and I did one evening. And so I did 3 years of the course before I joined Swindon. So I only had 2 years still to do. So I thought I'd be stupid to not carry on and finish it. So that's what I did.
Well, as I said, we'll get onto your business later, but that really is a really good, solid base for you, I'm guessing.
Oh, it was great. Do you remember a player called Billy Tucker?
Yeah, very much so.
Do you remember Bill? Well, Bill was also an accountant. And he was, I think, 2 years ahead of me. So Bill gave me all his books and the PFA paid all of my fees. So it kind of was free for me. And also Bill was a bit of a mentor. So if I had any problems with my studies, I could go and ask Bill.
He scored that very famous goal at Highbury, of course, in the League Cup.
He did. He was a great header of the ball. Very sad that he passed a couple of years back. Very sad.
Yeah, very sad indeed. And we're seeing a lot of people now, of course, Stan Bowles is the latest, isn't he? I think Chris Nicol has passed away as well, both with the same condition. So obviously it's a problem in football that it's got to address, I think it's fair to say. What about your second season?
Yeah, I thought I did better in the second season. I played some more games. I got in and out of the side. As I say, it was very difficult to dislodge Ian. But I thought I did better in the second season. If you remember, Bob was given the sack halfway through the season. I think after we played away at Exeter on Boxing Day. No, sorry, on Easter Monday. And I think Bob left then. And John gave me a bit of a run in the team up to the end of the season. I thought I did better.
That's the ups and downs of football, isn't it? 1 minute Bobby Smith's a hero. He's got into the League Cup semi-final, and a side that really should have got promotion, but sadly didn't.
Yeah.
And the next season, he's out on his ear.
He's out on his ear. He brought in quite a few loan players, and the dressing room was a bit unhappy, and it wasn't a great time at the club at that time. I think Ken Beamish came along and was helping out John Trollope, and my face didn't really fit with Ken. I played a few games under him, but I could see that, and it happens in football. Some managers like you, some managers want to see you do well. For others, you're not their cup of tea, and they're looking to move on.
Is there anything you can do to change that?
Well, I think if you get a run in the side and you maybe score a couple of goals and you make yourself indispensable, but if you'll remember in those days there was only one sub, so if you're on the bench and you get on, you usually get on for the last 10 minutes when someone's hurt or knackered. So you get on for 10 minutes and don't get the opportunity to impress. So it's tough.
Yeah. Some questions coming in. This is from the two old duffers who follow Swindon Town. What's the difference between super fit players of those days and the super fit players of today? Injuries seem to be a lot these days. The fitness staff virtually select the team. I mean, we were talking about people like John Trollope. I mean, 368 games in a row. That's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, absolutely. And then, all those records that he broke.
Very unusual. Very unusual. I think two things. One is, I think that the professionals today, if they don't feel 100% fit, they won't play. Whereas, when back in my day, the last thing you want to do is tell the manager you weren't fit. So you'd strap your ankle up, you'd tell the physio, no, I'm okay. And if you had a bit of a strain or a groin or a hamstring, you wouldn't tell them because you knew that might not get another chance again for another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, but nowadays, I think if they're not 100% fit, they won't play. And I think fitness levels are just as good, except I think they get a lot more help about their diets. So they eat properly, they drink properly, they get the proper rest. And I think there's much more sports science related information about for players now than there ever was.
Does that filter down to Cirencester's level? Is that the same?
Yeah, absolutely the same. We the manager there, is an ex-professional at Cheltenham Town. He ran their academy, so he knows all of that stuff. And I think players now, there's so much information about. You can get any of that information on the web today. In our day, remember, there weren't even mobile phones, let alone laptops and internet. So I think if they're not fit and they're not looking after their diet, then they won't have a good career as they should.
No. I was just thinking, actually, a pre-match dinner used to be sort of a lump of steak, didn't it?
Well, it did. And that was, a pre-match meal. I remember we used to go to South Marston Country Club. And, of course, I had no information. I thought, it'd be a good idea to have a piece of meat at 12 o'clock and then have a game at 3. And I soon disabused myself of that idea.
Yeah.
And I used to end up having some beans on toast and getting a few carbohydrates into me.
It's amazing, really, isn't it, when you think about it, that was seen to be the healthy option, a great lump of steak 3 hours before you play football, which anyone who, has any digestive problems without getting too graphic will know that steak isn't a great idea to go running around on, is it?
Absolutely not. Your body takes a long time to digest it and to use it. So, protein's great, but it should be the day before, not on the day.
So, all right, the Ken Beamish time wasn't a great time for you then. The third season, I think, comes to an end and you finally get released. So what was that feeling like?
It was in my own mind, it was kind of inevitable. As I said, I was coming to the end of my accountancy exams. The money involved in football in those days was not great. I mean, I could be a little bit more graphic about that, but it just wasn't great. So the difference between me going to get a proper job and playing part-time meant that I would end up with more money.
Sure. So Cheltenham, Gloucester, Wycombe Wanderers. I mean, actually, talking of Cheltenham and Wycombe as non-league, of course, they're both now in League One. I mean, and it seems ridiculous to talk about non-league clubs in those days now, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I really enjoyed my time at Cheltenham. We won promotion into what was then the conference, now called the National League, of course, and that was a great time for me there. And then the following season, I ruptured my cruciate ligament, which was 6 months out of the game, and then I struggled to get back in the team there. And then I was lucky enough to get a call from Wycombe Wanderers, and I went there and had another great time there. Played like 70 consecutive games for Wycombe and over 100 all told. So yeah, non-league was great to me. And after, I also played for Trowbridge, Gloucester, Witney, and finished my time at Gloucester.
I think Steve Cottrell, Martin O'Neill, were they both managers of yours?
No, Steve Cottrell wasn't. Steve Cottrell was a player with me at Cheltenham.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Martin O'Neill was the manager at Wycombe Wanderers. Yeah, and he did really well with the team. They won the trophy and promotion to the Football League under him.
Seems remarkable, as I've said, that they're now well-established Football League teams, isn't it? And days gone by, they were non-league, and Swindon used to play them in friendlies, for goodness' sake.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was good. It's good. I think Wycombe Wanderers, what they did was they sold the old ground and bought a new one, and Cheltenham seemed to me to be stuck in a bit of a time warp. They don't get any bigger crowds now than they did when I was playing back in the non-league days, which is a shame because it deserves a bigger crowd.
You also had a long-standing friendship with Brian Hughes, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I knew Brian from when I joined Swindon. He was an apprentice, and then we both played together at Cheltenham, and then he came when I took over as chairman at Cirencester, which is a long time ago now, back in the midst of time. Brian had 2 spells as my manager.
And how was that relationship when you've known him as a player and he's suddenly your manager? You're the chairman, he's the manager, etc. Does that change the relationship at all?
I think it does in a subtle way, because I have to make decisions that may not be the decisions that a good friend would make, but that it's never personal. It's always for the good of the club, and he was great because he got 2 promotions for us. And he was really a really good influence on the players. He knew a lot of local players personally, so he could always pick up the phone and call people and get new players in. And yeah, we had some great times with Brian.
Were you at Tetbury Road, were you, when you first took over?
Yes, I was at Tetbury Road. You'll know from your notes that my background is finance and property. And I was asked by the manager then to just go out and help with a bit of coaching because I'd finished at Gloucester. And then I just asked an innocent question one day and said, "Who owns the club?" And they said, "We do." And I thought, wow. I said, "What? No loans, no encumbrances, no, club owns it outright." So then I just said, "Look, I think we could do something here. The 5 acres in the centre of Cirencester, I think, we could do something. Build a new stadium and kind of get to the next level."
Yeah, if I remember right, there's a housing estate where Tetbury Road used to be. Is that right? If I remember.
There are some houses and some offices.
Yeah, that's right. As you go out towards Tetbury, obviously enough. Yes. And so you took over as chairman. What sort of decisions was that? I mean, being chairman is not kind of a cursory, you sit in a chair and enjoy a football game, is it? There's quite a lot involved in that. So how did that come about?
Yeah, well, I was never going to be a manager. I could never deal with players. So that was always never going to be a choice for me to go into management or coaching. And when they came along and said, "Look, we need somebody, we do want to move if we can. And would you take the lead in getting the club sold and moved to a bigger site?" And I said I would, but if I was going to do that, I need to be able to make decisions without going back to a committee of people all the time. And the only way I could do that is if I was the chairman.
Yeah. That new stadium, of course, is the other side of town, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got quite a good relationship with Swindon because the youth team play there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And Forest Green too. Forest Green use it for their academy all the time. Cheltenham use it occasionally. As you say, Swindon's under 18 use it regularly now. When we first took over, the project was sell the old ground, find somewhere to move to. So we eventually bought 16 acres over on the other side of Cirencester, near Kings Hill School in Kings Hill Lane, and we built a stadium, and we had, and still do have, 8 other full-size pitches outside the main stadium.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've got a question here from Andrew Skinner. He says, how do you keep Cirencester going on the attendances you achieve? What sort of gates do you get?
It's not easy. I'll give you an example. On Saturday, we had our biggest crowd of the season, and it was 280.
All right.
So our average gate this season has been about 170. And it's not easy. Our general manager, Scott Griffin, does a fantastic fundraising job. He sells the club wherever he can. I dip into my own pocket, although I hope my wife's not watching this.
Yeah. I mean, what about players then? Because, obviously there's huge money at the top of the Premier League, but at Cirencester level, what are we talking? I don't want to know how much they earn, but, how difficult is it to fund a squad, for instance?
It's getting harder all the time. And there are a number of reasons for that. There are teams that have come up from lower leagues, but they've got a couple of people who decided that they're going to put some serious money into them. And when you're surrounded, you've got clubs within a 10 or 15 mile radius, you'll find that the clubs move from club to club for an extra tenner or an extra £20. And that's really soul destroying when you are trying to build a team and a squad.
Yeah. What's your academy setup then?
Yeah, well, the academy unfortunately disbanded the year before last because the college stopped offering those courses, and without the education, you can't get the backing for the academy. So unfortunately, that disbanded, and it was a real. We were kind of in the forefront, in the vanguard, really, of that whole academy movement back in about 2002, 2003. Dave Hockaday started it for us, and then Steve Lowndes kept that going. But as I said, the college last year, in their wisdom, decided they weren't going to offer those courses anymore.
So does that, getting younger players to come to play for Cirencester then, does that mean a problem for you?
Yeah, big problem. It means that you also don't have a feeder team. So a team where the manager can come and look at young players who he thinks may deserve an opportunity either on the bench or to come in and play a full game. Unfortunately, we now have to look at other clubs.
Sure. Let's talk about your business for a little while then, because we're going to get onto the fact that you've got a stand named after you, which is quite an honour, I think. Let's talk about your business, because it's property. It's buying, selling, renovation. Is that right?
Well, we buy, we sell. We've also got a development business, so we also build new property, new houses. We'll probably build 20 to 25 a year, so we're not going to trouble Persimmon or Barrett anytime soon. But we make a living. I run what's called a part exchange program. So that's builders and park home operators who want to sell their units, would like to offer a part exchange deal with their new stock. And then we come in and buy that house and then move it on in the open market.
How easy is that now to sell properties? I mean, we see properties going up all over the place. I live near Exeter. My goodness me, they're building all over the shop. Cirencester has developed ridiculously in the last few years, hasn't it? So how is the property market at the minute?
Well, it's pretty depressed. I think, the reasons for that are well documented. Interest rates went from almost 0 to 5.25%, within a couple of months. First-time buyers are finding it really hard to get a mortgage. And without the bank of mum and dad, they kind of really can't do it on their own. And second and third time buyers, because first time buyers are not coming into the market, they're finding it hard to sell. So, and also they're keeping their powder dry, because we're all hoping that interest rates will come down, May, June time. So everybody's waiting and seeing. So nobody wants to make a decision right now.
Sure. I mean, if you were to advise people to go into the property business right now, would you do that?
I don't think so. I've been in it a long time now, so I've seen lots of peaks and troughs. I had that business during 2008 when we all thought the world was coming to an end.
Yeah.
So I think if we can get through that, we can get through this.
So 20 odd years as chairman of Cirencester Town. I mean, when you took that job on, how long did you envisage in the future it being that job? Did you say itself a limit, or was it just take it as it comes?
No, my original intention was to only be chairman for as long as it took to build a new stadium and move to that new ground. And then, so I was kind of thought I'd be in it for a 3-year period. I think I became chairman in 97 and we moved in 2002. So I thought at the end of that period, I'll hand over to somebody else. We had an AGM and I said I was going to stand down, and nobody else put their hand up to be the chairman. So I said, okay, I'll stay on for another year and we'll look for a chairman. And the rest is history. I'm still there now.
And you have a stand named after you, which is pretty good honour, isn't it?
Well, it's great, and I think it's kind of a thanks for all the work that we did. As I said, and it wasn't just me. There were lots of people involved in selling the old ground, moving to the new ground, and then 5 years ago we had a plastic pitch laid, which just to give you an example, on a grass pitch we use that pitch an average of 8 hours a week. On the plastic we use it 80 hours a week. So just gives you an understanding of how much more you can get out of those surfaces. They're not cheap to build, but they're really worth it.
But I assume that means that you've got a lot more community involvement as well, does it?
It does. We've got all our own teams, but we also host a number of local teams such as Stratton Juniors, Cricklade, a number of other villages and towns around that come and train on our pitches. Because, take, for instance, the last few weeks, grass pitches have not been usable. But no. I think we had 8 games on our pitch on Sunday.
Now, I'm looking also at your time at Gloucester. And I've written down here, played 3 games on a tour to Georgia. Yes. Now, I'm not sure, is that Georgia, United States, or Georgia in Eastern Europe? Which Georgia was it?
Georgia, Eastern Europe.
How was that?
It was a learning experience, let me tell you. They're a very, very poor country in those days. It was extremely hot, and it was just about the time that Gorbachev had got in charge in Russia, and there was an awful lot of unrest and bad feeling in Georgia about the Russians. And one day we had a 5-hour coach journey up into the mountains, and I can't describe the poverty of the people. It was unreal. It was the longest week of my life, and we didn't eat anything substantial for about 3 days because the hotel ran out of food.
Wow. How did that come about? It's not. I think it was Gloucester City, wasn't it?
Gloucester City. Well, do you know what was the chairman's name? Whose name now escapes me? The chairman. He lost all his money in the BCCI scandal. Oh goodness! He was also the Bath City chairman.
Well, Brian Godfrey was your manager, I think.
Les Alderman.
Oh, Les Alderman. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Les used to run orphanages around Eastern Europe.
Right.
And he owned 2 orphanages in Georgia. And so he thought it would be a great idea if he went over and played some games. And then just before we went, he decided he wasn't coming. And yeah, that's certainly a trip to remember.
How were the teams that you played? I mean, what were they like? Are they?
Yeah, pretty good. We played
Yeah.
a team in Tbilisi in the capital. We lost that game. We won the second game. Again, that was a long journey, probably a 3-hour coach drive in about 80-degree temperatures with no aircon on the bus. And then we won our final game, as I said, up in the mountains. It was look, none of us knew what to expect, and none of us would go back.
But it's an experience in life, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, real experience in life. And yeah, I think if we'd have been fed, it would have been okay.
Yeah, it might have helped. Yeah. In terms of your experience at Swindon, what did you take out of it? Because all right, you didn't get a regular run in the first team, but you had 3 seasons there. You became a professional footballer, which for most young kids is a dream anyway. What did you take out of that experience?
Oh, right. What did I take out of the experience? As I said earlier, I think to play professional sport, you need to be very motivated, dedicated, and super fit. I think I had a couple of bad injuries there, and I didn't get the best advice about how to recover from those. I think I took away the fact in those days the apprenticeship system was not an apprenticeship. It was kind of cheap labour.
I was going to say totally different to the academy system these days, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, totally different world.
Yeah, I mean, from what experience then, what did you take into A, non-league, and then B, into being a chairman? Because you've seen the good and the bad side of professional football. You're dealing with footballers, you're dealing with a committee, I assume.
Yeah.
What did you take into that?
Well, non-league for me was the best of both worlds because I could still play football, only 2 nights a week training and a game on a Saturday or a midweek game and one night a week. I could get a job that used my other skills and meant I could go and get a mortgage and start a family. And I couldn't have on the wages I was earning at Swindon. And then when I'd finished playing, the biggest thing for me was to stay involved in football. I knew I didn't want to be a manager and didn't really have the skills to be a manager. But I thought I could bring some of my business acumen to running a football club. And so that's what I did. So we very much run it as a business. We very much try to make sure that the income, at least in a small way, exceeds the outgoings. And I leave the management of players to the manager.
Right. I mean, you mentioned the fact that relationships, sometimes you have to make tough decisions. How do you feel when you have to make those tough decisions? Because that's the gig, isn't it, being chairman? Those decisions have to be made and you have to do it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've taken away from that is it's not always a great idea to pick your friends as the manager. Because one day, and it's the same in every division, one day you're going to have to say goodbye to them. And you want your friendship to continue after that, and it's not always that easy. So sure. I try to be friendly with the manager, but not friends.
Yeah, I think that's a very good philosophy to have. I mean, you mentioned how you run a football club. I mean, you'll note that, of course, Torquay United have got into serious trouble this week. The administrators have been called in.
Yeah.
That's a non-league team, sadly, now. And they were sort of reliant on the money funded to them by an owner. So how easy or difficult is it to keep a club sustainable? I mean, Clem Walfouni keeps saying he wants to make Swindon sustainable. How easy or difficult is that to do?
I think it's the hardest job in football is to try to, because what we all are is we're all ambitious and we all want to see our team at the top of the league. And we all want to have a good feeling when we go home on a Saturday after the game. And nowadays, money is all important, and players want more and more of it. And it's very, very difficult to resist that temptation to go and spend money you don't have. And that's what's happened at Torquay. And we could probably both come up with half a dozen other examples where the chairman has let his enthusiasm for the club run past what he can put in out of his own pocket.
Do you have to deal with agents at Cirencester's level?
We don't have any contract players, so agents won't represent players. We've had some dealings with agents when we take loan players from other clubs, and it's an interesting experience, because even when I was a pro, there was no agents. Nobody I knew had an agent, and it's kind of probably the last 15 years or so, it's crept into the non-league game as well as the football league game. So they've got to make a living, but I'm sure there are some very good agents about, but I don't think non-league is the place for them.
Because, of course, teams in National League South, Torquay full-time professional, so they're full-time pros. So I assume, contracts have to be negotiated. In your day, I guess, if you wanted a bit of extra money, just knocked on the manager's door, did you?
Yeah, you knocked on the manager's door and he ignored you.
Yeah, I think it's Brian Clough, wasn't it, who said, the player knocks on the door, he comes in and says he wants an extra tenner. We talk about it for 10 minutes and then he leaves. That sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't ever remember asking for a rise. When I was first there, first of all, I was very naive. And second, I was just so happy to be a professional footballer. I'd have probably done it for nothing if I could have. And then, of course, after there a couple of years, and in the dressing room, there are probably 4 things that players talk about: cars, the game, women, and money. And money is by far the favourite subject of everybody. So if you find out what other people are asking for, and you think, well, I must be the lowest paid, I better go and talk to the manager. And I talked to the manager, and he said, yeah, you are the lowest paid. He said, because you're always injured.
Did it cause problems in the dressing room?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness, yeah, absolutely. I won't name names, but there are some people who were just obsessed with what everybody else was earning. And, they were always trying to get people into a corner and find out whether they were earning more than him. And if they were, there was going to be a lot of hell to pay. And they just did.
How did that sort of, team spirit, you talk about team spirit. I'm guessing that affected that as well.
Well, look, you talk about the team that was, getting to semi-finals and winning cup games. At that time, everybody was earning lots of bonus through the fact that they would be getting to the next round. It's when you're not doing very well that all of those problems come to the surface. Yeah,
the relegation season in '82, that wasn't a great season, was it?
No, absolutely wasn't. Well, as you know, I left then. I left in the April, just before the season ended, and it was poor. And I think an awful lot of players then were very disgruntled about money. As I said, they've got a lot of loan players in, and I think they were all earning more than the players who were permanent, which made it a bad atmosphere.
Yeah. You see, as fans, we don't know that, do we? We just kind of assume that the team goes out and gives its best every day. But
I guess if you think to yourself, let's just say you're on a production line working for Press Steel, and you found that the guy who's doing the same job as you is earning, 50% again more than you are. You're bound to have a problem with that. And that's what those kind of things happen. As soon as players started to disclose what they were earning to other players, the ones who were earning less were not happy.
No, sure. Where do you want to go with Cirencester? Obviously you've spoken about the financial constraints. I'm guessing you're the sort of chairman who won't chase the glory and risk the club. I'm guessing that's pretty much what you are.
Look, one of my philosophies has always been, what do you win if you win promotion? Well, in our league, I think the prize money is about 5k, to win it. And then what you really win is the ability to spend even more money next season, because you need better players and they'll command higher salaries. And then your worries multiply. Now, if Cirencester was the kind of town where I thought, well, if we get promotion, we'll get another 500 people in the gate, then you've got a fighting chance. But it's not. And we've been promoted 3 times now in my tenure. And if I were to look at the gates, they've never been above around 170. So
what can you do to? I mean, you must have tried everything to try and improve that. Do you come to a point where you think, this is it, we ain't going to get any more, so it's not worth trying, or do you continually try?
Well, we do continually try, and we try to attract youngsters. We try to do all sorts of things, as you say. I'm over 20 years as a chairman, and I'm a little bit more inured to it now. In the old days, I was very enthusiastic about all sorts of ways to get more fans into the ground. The best way, of course, is to win football matches, but winning football matches won't add 300 or 400 to the gate. It might add 30 or 40.
So then you have to rely on other things rather than football, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, oops, I'm sorry.
That's all right. There you go. No worries. So if you look back on your career, then what do you take away from it as a person? Because you often hear about the footballer, we hear about, all the rest of it that goes on, but there's a human inside there. So as a person, what do you take out of it?
Oh, goodness me. I think the same as everybody takes out of their lives. It's varied. I loved my time playing football, both in the league and in non-league. I played over 600 non-league games. So, I got loads of fun. I've made loads of friends in football. In fact, all the friends that I've kept in life are people I met playing football, which kind of says something about the football community. Wherever I go in the country to watch a game, I'll see somebody I know from my past, and we'll end up having a chat and a laugh and reminisce. So I think that's what I take. I think football has been great to me. And oh my goodness,
no worries. Yeah, yeah. Go and answer that. Yeah, just a reminder: if you want to go to SAS tomorrow night, and they've got a few spaces available for the Bristol City game for the under-18s a week on Thursday, plus Mansfield and Walsall. They're available tomorrow night in their office behind the county ground. So, as a person, you're taking away friendship that you've made in your life in football, and that's an incredible thing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, everywhere I go, I see somebody that I've met or played against or played with, and football's given me so much in my life. Obviously, we all have to earn a living. I love being in business, but it has nowhere near gave me what I've got from football and friends. And as I said, all the friends that I've kept and keep in touch with are people I met playing football.
Are you a competitive person per se?
Oh, extremely. My wife. When my son was young, my wife always thought I should let him win, and I never did.
So I assume that works in business as well, does it?
Oh yeah, very, very much so. I think you compete all the time, don't you? You compete for a job. You compete to buy a piece of land. You're always competing with somebody, and then when you build something, you have to sell it, and you're competing with all the other houses that are on the market. So competition is a huge part of my life.
You mentioned the fact you're an Everton season ticket holder and you go up there when you can. Do you watch Swindon at all? Do you ever get back to the camp?
Yeah, occasionally I get out to watch Swindon. As I said, because I watch Siren on a Saturday, and if Everton are playing a midweek game, I'll go there. But I've been to Swindon probably 3 times in the last year. I think last year they had a better season. I think this year they're struggling a bit.
Yeah, they're 18th at the moment in League Two. I mean, what have you made of them when you've watched them?
Too many lone players. Not enough. They're the under-18s, for instance. They had a great season. Are they in the quarterfinals of the
quarterfinals? Yeah,
they've beaten some decent teams along the way. I think it might be time to give some of the kids a chance, not just on the bench, but actually give them a couple of first team games.
Is that people often say that, but is that a risk or not? How would I mean? Look at Liverpool, for goodness sake. They brought a load of kids on yesterday, and they still won a major cup competition. You don't know, do you?
That's the thing. You say it's a risk, but you'll never know unless you give them a chance. And some lads take to it like duck to water. Some lads, it takes them a little bit longer to get over it, and some lads freeze. And you're never going to know which one they are until they are given a chance. So, look, if they're 18th, and I know that they'll be concerned about making sure they stay in the division, but surely there are 2 or 3 lads in that under 18 side who deserve a chance in first team.
Well, we'll see, of course, before between now and in the end of the season, which is, I think, April the 27th. When does your season finish?
Yeah, same.
Same. You finished on the same day. And what happens in close season for you then? Is it getting the pitch ready again for the next season?
Well, Well, obviously the pitch doesn't need to get ready because it's
because it's plastic. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So it's getting the outside pitches ready and seeded and all of that stuff. But a lot of it is about the repairs that need doing around the ground. It's all about kind of keeping the place shipshape.
Do you look forward to the end of the season?
Well, it depends. Depends where we are in the league. At the moment, we're in the playoff places. So, and we got 10 games to go. So I think there's every chance that we can stay in the playoff places. And then there's if you get promoted through the playoffs, then great. And if not, well, it's a good end to the season.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Did that add anything to the gate, the playoffs?
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah. And obviously, as you know, in the playoffs, if you finish in a higher position, you're more likely to be at home.
Yes.
If we're fifth, because the top team goes up automatically. So if we were fourth, we'd play the second place team away. So we need to at least try and get into the third place.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we wish you well with that. If there was one non-league team that you look at now that's made that perhaps has progressed to the football and is the model for you to look at, which one would that be, would you think?
Oh, well, I think everybody would say Wrexham.
Right, obviously, yes.
But, I think Wycombe have done a great job. Cheltenham have done a great job. And I think any team that gets out of that National League, because there are some really old Football League teams still knocking about in there. I think it's great. But, yeah, I think Wycombe and Cheltenham, and maybe because I played for them both and got a soft spot for both of them, but I think they're both good blueprint to follow.
Sure. Well, Steve, thank you very much indeed for your time. I know you got about 23 business calls by the sound of it coming in tonight. Yeah. So we really, really appreciate it. It's been fascinating insight into the pro game and indeed life outside of the pro game, because we often talk about being a professional and how great it is and all this kind of stuff, but there is life after professional football, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I said, the money wasn't that great when I was playing. So when I left the game and went and got a job as a trainee accountant, I was earning the same money that I was getting at Swindon. So I got an extra few quid for going and playing for Cheltenham.
Oh, there you go. You see, that's the way of it. Not that glamorous, is it? Sometimes, really, but but you made it. You made it as a professional footballer, and that's great thing.
Yeah. I always tell myself that as well.
Yeah, quite right too. Well, there you are, Chris. What a fascinating insight into life as a footballer and a business person.
Exactly, yes. And it was good that you mentioned your friendship with Brian Hughes, because we had him on not so long ago on here.
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
That was good. So,
but he lives not very far from me. I'm in Cirencester, and he lives in South Cerney.
Oh, right.
Okay.
So
he just finished the night shift when he was with us.
That's right.
Bless him. So he spent an hour with us, so we were very grateful. So that was
we did it in the morning.
Scoring an absolute worldie on his debut, a 16-year-old. And I played in that game, and he lashed it in for about 25 yards, and nobody could believe it, because I don't know if you remember those days, but I think he was about 7 stone soaking wet.
Yeah.
Curly hair.
Yeah,
I always wondered about if he had curly hair.
Yeah, real good player.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Steve. As Vic said, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for spending the time with us. So we will be back next Monday. It will be a panel, because we have got Harrogate at home on Saturday. And we've got Tranmere tomorrow night. So 2 games to discuss on next Wednesday's panel. So have a good week, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Just
Bye-bye.
before we go, I was going to say, I was just going to say, Ron Carter is messaging to say, what a great insight into football. So there we are. Thank you very much for that.
Great. Pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you. Right, we're going this time. Bye-bye.
Bye.